Septima Sensining. As I live and learn. As I live and learn, Septima Sensining.
I'm curious. Can you show me by raising your hand how many of you popped out of the womb with life's instruction manual clenched in your fist? Anyone? No? Okay, good, because I certainly did not get that life instruction manual when I popped out. Like you, I've had the pleasure of learning life's lessons as I lived my life. Some of them were fun, and others, as in the case of my dating life, weren't always so fun. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Contest Master, Albert Einstein said, the only source of knowledge is experience. Here is my first taste of how true that is. I met my first love when I was 23, not when I was in 4th grade. I was in graduate school in San Francisco, and ours was a harlequin romance. There were heart palpitations. There were long talks in the wee hours of the night and dashes home to see each other in the middle of the day. Upon graduation, we decided to move to Wisconsin together, where his family lived. I went from weekend trips wine tasting in Napa Valley to weekend trips to the National Mustard Museum. Can you believe there's a museum about mustard? And try as I might, I could not get used to dinner time conversations where people would say things like, oh, honey, this beer goes really great with these brats, you know. It just wasn't for me. And after 7 months of beer, brats, and mustard tasting, I finally escaped Wisconsin. Albert was right. I had learned a lot from that experience. And what did I now know? I'm going to share 3 things with you today. Number 1, never, ever, ever again date a cheesehead. Number 2, I never want mustard on another sandwich as long as I live. And number 3, there's no such thing as a real-life harlequin romance. Armed with this new knowledge and that experience, at the ripe old age of 24, I went back out into the world to see what else I had to learn about love. The next great lesson came shortly after I turned 30. Lesson here, don't turn 30. But I did, like many of you have. And I took stock of my life, and I thought, you know, it's time for me to settle down. I decided to pick up my dating life, and that's what I did for the first 3 or so years of my 30s. And then, the lesson. This lesson came in the form of a weekly check-in status update with my mother. You see where I'm going? Well, she said those dreaded words. Tima, I think it's time for you to settle down and get married. I really would like a grandchild someday. I was horrified. It's one thing for me to put that pressure on myself, and another thing entirely for my mother to tell me I'm about to become a spinster. What did I learn from that lesson? Other than that I was disappointed to my mother. Nothing. I ignored the lesson, and at the ripe old age of 33, I continued to date the likes of a recent college graduate who had just graduated, and he was still living in the dorm. He was cute, so who cares? And then there was the recent divorcee who, on our first date after his 3rd margarita, thought it would be the perfect time to tell me that both his ex-wife and his mother had restraining orders against him. I didn't tell my mother about that. Then there was Wayne. Wayne, the Italian guy. Let me ask you, do you know any Italian guys named Wayne? Well, I met one. And Wayne wanted nothing more in his life than to make his mother a fat Italian meatball of a grandmother. Yes, those were his exact words. And yes, that was our last date. Well, you might be asking yourselves, what happens when you ignore the lesson? The answer is, life has a very funny way of giving you an opportunity to learn the lesson again. Here's how this happened to me. I was at my friend's daughter's birthday party. This was my goddaughter. She was turning 3. And my friend's mother-in-law cornered me at the party. She asked me about my career, about my social life, and she asked me, you guessed it, about my love life. Can you hear my mother's voice right now? And at the end of the conversation, she looked at me and she said, well, Tima, I think it's very sad that a pretty girl like you is still single. You know, that was it. I'd had enough. I do not go to toddlers' birthday parties to be called a loser. I went home that night and I took out my list of criteria for men. And I crossed off the meatball lovers. And I crossed off the recent divorcees. And yes, I also crossed off the recent graduates. Armed with my new list, I went back out there into the world to see what else, what other lessons did I have to learn this time. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems I may have finally gotten it right. Too bad my mother's not here to hear this. But for the past 6 months, I'm very happy to say that I've been dating a handsome, fun, interesting, successful, nice, attractive, sexy, and am I allowed to say that? And yes, he's also age-appropriate man, and he lives in Boston. Thank you. I urge all of you, look at your lives. Think about the lessons that might be presenting themselves for you to learn right now. Learn them once. It's so much easier. And remember, it's so much better than reading an instruction manual.